kind of like the emotions that kind of went in and out, like Wim Wenders kind of movies, like Wings of Desire, like where there's like a philosophical meaning behind it, but at the same time, there's like a lot of it's honestly a reflection of kind of the time period, you know, like where it was just very gothic in its own right, but like it's reflecting on the history of that country with what's been going on with the split with communism. What am I'm blanking on the other one. Communism. What were we in the US? It was capitalism. Yeah, that's what it was. So
yeah.
You know, like, well, I watched a lot of those kind of movies in school. I remember writing papers about them, and it really kind of changed my way of thinking of how I approached looking at movies, where you know they're emotional, you know, bodies of art, you know, and there's so many emotions, and you know, I felt gloomy watching Wings of Desire. Don't get me wrong, but like I feel like that there's something about those avant-garde pieces, you know, during that specific time period. I remember like reading a ton of like Cold War stuff, like post World War II, like history. And we're talking pop culture, like just like the history factors of it. And I've had this fascination of like pretty much between 1947 and 91 with all like anything during that time period, like that has everything to do with like the politics and kind of what artists were doing to kind of reflect post-war. I mean, Wings of Desire is for me on top of there, and it came out like 87, like very close to the Berlin Wall falling. And you know, it's stories about both people in West Germany and East Germany, what they're dealing with in the perspective of an angel, like a fallen angel who isn't in heaven right now, and he's looking down upon people who are thriving and struggling. It's a movie about people. It's a movie about people that are, you know, going through the wind of it in a very tough era in Germany's history when you're recovering from fascism, and then you're split between, you know, capitalism and communism, and those divides before they reunified again. I mean, German Express. There's a lot of deep down going in with German expressionism, but like Wings of Desire is that one movie that like stood out to me out of that whole piece.
Did you see? You'll have to help me out here. Wim Wenders, he did a movie, or I think he did two movies. It was documentaries. I think it was 1966, and then there was like 1999, or maybe I'm getting those mixed up. Where I think he was at Cannes Film Festival, and he rented a hotel room, and he just set up a wide shot in the hotel room, and he asked filmmakers to come and give their interpretation on whether or not Hollywood was dying. Do you know the movies I'm talking about?
I might be blanking on them. I might be when was this recent or was this more?
I only found out about it recently. The first one was old. I think it was from the 60s, because he had not Fellini. He had another famous French wave filmmaker. He was in there, and Herzog and a bunch of others. And then like 30 years removed, he did the same thing, but with filmmakers who were attending from Cannes at that time. But what about you? Do you think that the film industry is dying, or do you think that art is thriving in the film industry?
I mean, the old system is dying. How things have been done with the studio system, where, you know, like punching in movies after movies, like IP after IP, where it's like, okay, like I mean, look at, I don't know, Minecraft. Minecraft just came out, you know, it made a lot of money.
It seemed to do pretty well, though.
It did very well, but like you could take an IP like Minecraft or an IP like Barbie, or, you know, an IP in general. The first one does well, and they try to make money on the second one, and the second one doesn't perform as well as the first one. I don't think cinema is dying. I think it's
changing.
It's changing. You know, I think it's adapting, I would say, is the more appropriate word to put, because, you know, we got, you know, movies have always been meant to be seen in the theater, and that's always still going to be the case. But with streaming going on, you said this is the same thing that happened when television. Everyone thought cinema was going to die when television came out in the 40s. When it was like, oh my God, like all the movies are now going small screen format. Like you can just watch in your own home. The cinemas are going to die. It didn't die. They created content catered for television, and television's thriving on its own while the cinema still did its thing. I mean, at that point, they probably put out CinemaScope. Yeah, around that time. Like that, cinema did different things to keep itself alive. And I mean, look at today with streaming. I mean, that has been the biggest uphill battle because now content is accessible at the palm of our hand. And now we're at the point where our attention span in social media has made content more viable, accessible, but also like we want content. So our attention span has gotten really worse over time because of that, because we're so used to all this, types of stories, types of content that we're watching, whether it's short form, long form, and like the consumer is hungry.
Mm.
And when the consumer's hungry, they want more. And the problem is that like we have to overproduce content to meet the customer satisfaction. So I feel that overwhelmness with social media, with like the likes of TikTok, Reels, and short form content has made going to the cinema a little tougher because you have to sit through 90 minutes to 2 hours, watching a movie. Same with seeing an episode on Netflix. We have like 30 minutes to an hour. We want people to watch our stuff, but how can we keep them on the edge of their seat? That's something that's really hard. And I feel like with the ever changing, even with AI now, and that being kind of implemented with how movies are being made and what type of movies and content we're watching is making. I feel like I don't know if the business is going to die out itself, but I do think it's going to adapt, and I think we just have to adapt to that change. It's not the first time it's happened. It won't be the last one, but it is scary now because technology has gotten advanced. So it's all about what we can do to keep up with that.
Are you afraid of AI?
I mean, I think AI is a tool, but I'm afraid of it, taking over my brain at one point, maybe, becoming a whole microchip in a memory card, but I think it's a good tool for appropriate reasons. I don't think it's, I don't want it to take over how movies are made, and how like, taking away people's jobs. I think that's not a good idea at all. I'm fully against that, but I do think there are some benefits with tools, with AI, whether with, helping with proofread writing, but not having it write things on its own, to helping it being a tool with like audio cleanup or something, or, post-production cleanup, but in a manner where it does not take the jobs away from people who make this industry come up in the ground up.
Do you use ChatGPT? For the longest time, I thought it was ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
Do you use it?
So ChatGPT came out when I was a senior in college.
How old do you now?
I'm 24.
24.
And I always hated writing essays in college, I
Did you?
Hated in a manner of like, I have to write like 20 pages thesis, and just, I love being a storyteller and I love, writing things from the first person. So I adapted a lot of
at the risk of cutting you off, which I'm currently doing. Why? So you're a storyteller, you like writing. Why? What about the essay didn't you like?
I think part of it was, I think it just depends on what I was writing.
Okay.
More at a time. I think by the end of college, I was.
Yeah, because if you're writing something on astronomy and you have no fucking interest in astronomy versus, telling like a character story, I see what you mean. Like, that can be daunting.
Like, I like writing about stuff that I know. And I someone who I met at Cannes, said, you got to write what you know. And that's something that I feel like I've been struggling recently the past couple of years of trying to write, but I feel like I'm forcing myself to write something I don't know. And I feel like I have to kind of get out of that mindset and start looking and seeing the environments I'm in.
Well, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that, that you should write what you know?
I think it's a good baseline to help you, forge, a much more ambitious idea. I think if in its own way, like writing what you know helps you familiarize the world that you're building to then, using it as your rock more or less, to then when you're getting further and further into your script and, building character development, building, setting, like getting a feel, a taste of the sound of the page and the words. Like, I feel like it's good to build a foundation with what you know. And then once you have everything that starting exploring topics and ideas where they may be not as familiar as what but they're not intimidating and daunting to go explore.
Yeah, of course. Sense. So it sounds like what you're describing, which I would agree with if you are, kind of maybe like an emotional core or like, a foundational. Because I don't know. I'm thinking about Interstellar. It's like, I don't know dog shit about space.
Right.
But like, I can relate to what's at the core of those emotional struggles in
Yeah.
that,
No,
and kind
absolutely.
of building out from there, you know?
It's yeah, no, absolutely. It's built. It's I mean, there's a bit of unknown when you're right, and I feel like with those cores, it's all about finding that familiarity more or
Yeah.
less, and once the biggest thing is that we get writer's block, like, I mean, for me, I get writer's block all the time. So, and the thing that I kind of have to detach away from is like not to think when I'm writing, but also kind of, not write blind and write, a bunch of dog shit. You got to kind of, okay, this is what I'm going to write. I'm going to write about, green eggs and ham, let's say. And I'm going to write everything I know about green eggs and ham, and I'm going to detail everything out. This person's gonna say this, that person's gonna say that, and I'm just gonna continue writing until I feel like I can't write no more. And I'm
Mm.
gonna look back and be like, oh my god, this works, this is absolute garbage. Okay, let's tweak this, go there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a lot of I feel like my friends who are better writers than I am, they kind of are trying to get me outside of the box and tell me not to be afraid to what you want to write because it's worth writing it down on something than not writing it at all.
Yeah, of course.
So
So how long, catching everybody up to speed who's listening to this podcast, you're a writer, director, producer.
for those who don't know me, my name is Charlie Norton. I'm a writer, director, producer based in Bridgewater, Mass, born and raised there.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been working in the industry for about 9 years, since I was a teenager.
How does that come to be? Most people don't get into the industry until, 18 or like after they've graduated college. So what was your first experience working in the industry then?
I mean, besides I was a filmmaker with a kid with a camera story.
Now you're 24. So what was
Yeah.
your first camera? Were you dealing with DV tapes, or were you already onto, memory cards?
I was on I think it was a JVC cassette tape camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
cool.
literally my parents' camera, video camera. Making videos of my stuffed animals, making videos of my friends. I was like, it was a gift when I was 9 years old. And it was something I brought around on hockey tournaments and trips, and just recorded everything that I
Just kind
wanted
of
to see.
document.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I didn't know what type of storyteller I wanted to be, so I just experimented. I experimented by just recording archive video. And you look back and you're like, oh my god, like that's me. That's my buddy Jeff. That's like just the fascination of watching something back from what you recorded, and then learning manually, not with editing, because I didn't cut my cassette tapes. I recorded everything in order, without going in and working in post production, because I didn't know what editing software was when I was that young.
Yeah.
So I was always telling all my movies, all my stories in chronological order. And that was daunting, but at least I got to understand like kind of how the storytelling process works, on how I wanted to start my story, where my story wanted to be in the middle, and how I wanted to wrap it all up and end it. And I remember having like 20 or 30 cassettes somewhere lying around in my desk, of all my old home movies. And they kind of, what's crazy, some of them became a foundation of some work I produced later on, but very, very early fragments, nothing that I've done more recently. But I remember adapting one of my ideas, with a friend of mine that from grade school, that we ended up remaking and reshot on digital. And it was like an hour feature and didn't even know we were making a feature at the time.
Really?
And but it was like the same old stuff, just different camera, we had a script, it was kind of more like a spy thriller, but we didn't, obviously it looks like something that we shot in our backyard.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
at 16, but I mean, a lot of those,
And wait, you adapted that later?
I adapted when I made it I think I made a first draft of it at like 11, 12.
Like a script, or you actually,
Like
wrote the script and then went and filmed it?
Shot on the fly.
Oh,
Like
cool.
shot on the fly, like on vacations and like at random places, and like we're pretending we're like these big spies in some big organization, trying to stop some bad guy coming in and taking over the world, with some computer science chip or something.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think
yeah.
off the top of my head like the whole plot of it all, but I remember it was a spy thriller, and then we tried remaking it shot for shot and in some capacity, and we ended up pretty much having the quality look exactly the same, just different camera, but we tried.
Learning lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've been making movies since I was young. And those early practices helped me get to Um, Starting to make like little videos, little, kind of snippet stuff for my high school. So I went to Cardinal Spellman in Brockton, and I got my first internship more or less at our school's communications department. So I was producing a lot of social media content for them, like a lot of like like prep rally videos and all that stuff. Just getting like hands-on experience that eventually got me an internship at Flicker's Rhode Island International Film Festival at I think the same age, 16. So I kept producing stuff, putting it out on YouTube with my school's consent and just pumping things out, And from once I always wanted to do narrative. I always knew that like if I was gonna be a storyteller, I wanted to do, narrative. And I just didn't know how to break in. I was just taking whatever I could get my hands on just to get the experience technically. And then once I transitioned from making my own stuff to then understanding how film festivals work very in my teens, I kind of saw a whole other door of what kind of filmmakers were making on the short form, the long form, everything in between. And, it was very daunting as a teenager. You don't know what the hell you're saying. You don't know what the hell you're doing. But you're trying and you're attempting to network and you're attempting to kind of understand what other people are saying with their own films. But it was very eye-opening. I believe, in a good way.
Like being what, at Flickrs, or just like this whole journey that you're describing from doing like the internships, content for your school and Flickrs, or what specifically?
I mean, I feel like definitely Flickrs for sure.
In what way? Tell me about that film festival. We entered a short film into Flickrs a long time ago, didn't get in. So ever since then, I've kind of had like this personal, like, fuck Flickrs. But what was your experience there?
Well, my first ever internship, or one of the first I did, was I was a part of the youth jury. So there was like a under 20, it was like a high school college program.
Cool.
More or less. So I was going to all the screening blocks. I had the same access as a regular juror and a regular staff or filmmaker badge. And I got to see whatever films I wanted to go see while they were there. But I had to do at least like 4 or 5 blocks a day because our job was to get the short films. We didn't have to worry about the features, thankfully, but I had to watch as many short films as I could, give them a rating, jot some thoughts down. I ended up talking to a couple of those filmmakers and networking with them at that festival, which is great. Like just being one-on-one with a lot of those people and learning from people who are getting into film festivals like Flickrs. So it was a very hands-on internship of just watching movies of good, bad, and ugly, but also, practicing my networking and practicing kind of, how to properly talk to people and asking the right questions and, kind of understanding film school stuff before going to film school. So it was a very, I loved that experience so much. I ended up doing it for 2 more years.
Oh, so, wow. When you said that you're going to each block and watching, you're talking about like during the festival. You're not talking about like you're seeing all these films before they premiere. So you get to see them for the first time and kind of take notes and, get your impression like in a theater with people.
Yeah, pretty much. It added a nice communal experience to it.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Because I wish I had access to those screeners, but I don't even think I would have time to watch all of them with my schoolwork at the time, you know?
Yeah.
So being there in the theater, watching it with all these other artists felt really special. And even if I didn't realize it at the time, I look back and reflect on it now, like that's what the, movie going experience is all about, is, watching
with a live audience.
Yeah, watching stuff
in a dark room.
Exactly. Watching films in a dark room with, with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers. Like, the cinema is a communal experience. It's meant to be watched with people, not alone.
Do you remember the first movie you ever saw in theater?
Finding Nemo.
For real?
Yeah, Finding Nemo. That was the first movie I ever saw. It was a Pixar movie. My first word was Pixar.
Was it? Wait, how old are you?
I was at least 1, but Finding Nemo didn't come out. I think I was like watching Toy Story or something like that, like VHS.
Yeah.
But going to the theater.
In
the theater, it was Finding Nemo.
Okay.
Because prior, I was saying Pixar all around my mom and dad's house. After watching Toy Story, after watching A Bug's Life and Monsters Inc., and I'm seeing that Pixar logo, I was like, Pixar.
That's fun.
So
And then your catchphrase probably in the back seat every time you had to go to the grocery store was just keep swimming.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Having all the Finding Nemo pull-ups and
Yep.
all the the snacks that came with it and the toys at McDonald's.
Well, that's fun.
Pixar was oh man, that definitely I felt like if it was fate that had literally had all the words. I could have said mom, I could have said dad.
Pixar.
I said Pixar.
I love that.
Don't know how it ended up here, but I guess it's
Well,
by fate.
Well, speaking of that, so
Yeah.
you had you started kind of interest in and practicing filmmaking in high school. Did you went to college for film?
I did. I went to Hofstra University. It's in Long Island, New York. So technically, it's in Hempstead, Garden City. So around there, it's 30 minutes from Manhattan.
And you said you've been there for a while in New York, right? You said like 5 years?
I was there for 5 years. So I went to undergrad for 4. And then the year after I graduated, I kind of couch surfed all around New York, just trying to, find my way to stay on set when it was during the strikes and all that jazz. Because I graduated during the strikes. I went to college during COVID. Like, my college experience is non-existent.
Yeah, you kind of got, kicked in the ass with a cowboy boot around that time, huh?
Oh, worse than that, man. It was way worse than that. But I mean, we're still standing in some capacity, but I got some college out of it, which was nice.
Did you finish?
I did finish, yeah.
You did?
Yeah. So I that was the plan. I originally was going to transfer. I wasn't a fan of my first year. Like I had good friends, but like something about it, like I was like, oh, I could probably do better somewhere else. Or
why is that? What about it didn't you like? Was it actually? How do I phrase this without sounding like an asshole? Because I went to University of Rhode Island, so it's not a film school, but I went to film school. Was Hofstra like geared toward filmmaking? Like, were you in a filmmaking program?
Oh yes, it was absolutely. Yeah, they have a great program.
But you didn't get on with it. You weren't liking it at the time.
I think at the time I wasn't liking it. I think it maybe when you go to a new state and you're meeting new people and you're dealing with all walks of life. Keep in mind I was a sheltered little Catholic schoolboy,
coming from Bridgewater,
Massachusetts.
Was the city like? Did it really kind of fuck with you? Like, was it a lot?
It was a lot at first, I'll say, but I love New York. I mean, it's it's a city I want to find my way back to at some point.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But at first it was daunting, and I think it was just the fact that I was meeting all walks of life and meeting people with different point of views and just kind of understanding who people are.
Was it weird being in the city that never sleeps? I mean, I've spent
at first, yeah.
I've spent time in New York. I've never like lived there, but it doesn't actually sleep. Like,
no, it doesn't. It's constantly moving. You ever seen those lights get shut off? I feel like no. Unless there's like a global blackout, then sure, maybe the lights actually sleep.
Yeah.
Like very rarely that city sleeps. It never
I feel
does.
like that kind of energy though is like infectious for a young filmmaker. Did you kind of catch that bug? Is that maybe what changed your experience in college?
I feel like it did. So I think COVID's the reason why I stayed.
What do you mean?
Because I was gonna leave Hofstra at first. I was already writing up transfer applications. I was gonna go to school somewhere else. I just didn't know where it was. I was starting that process and I mostly stayed on campus my first year. I had a college experience more or less. But I was also kind of learning who I was as a storyteller, filmmaker, watching movies,
person.
Learning who I was as an adult. But when COVID happened, all of that kind of went on pause. I kind of got this little reset of like senior year of high school for some reason when everyone came back. Because when COVID hit, all the college kids that went to college that first year went home. They either, stayed home, moved somewhere else, left school. Like it was kind of like a reset of senior year for some reason. And so I took advantage of that time to kind of just embrace home a bit and kind of just get one last little punch out of it. I enjoyed, that time. I mean, it was definitely hard for, it was hard for my family. It was hard for a lot of people's families, but I do remember kind of having some kind of social life during COVID. But by the time it was like that summer when it got a little crazy, because it was one of those things where when all the teenagers were just, getting, they were getting anxious, when you're at that age, you're so ambitious and so eager to meet different people and go explore things, go abroad, go live in a different city, go make a movie, and
Mhm.
we were kind of held back that one year. I feel like COVID made a lot of us very socially awkward at times. And I felt that after effect, as time went on.
Kind of
Um,
renewed energy, maybe. Like,
yes,
a desire to kind of fuck all of that and say something or do something wild.
exactly. I feel like that energy like got me more excited to go back to New York in a way where it's like,
Hmm.
oh, if this is what being a young adult should be like, then I should be going and doing this in a city like New York, not in, my hometown.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving back to Hofstra. I ended up staying there the 4 years. We thankfully had testing at the time, and we had resources to stay on campus. And that's when I feel like I really started getting to this bread and butter. 'Cause I remember during COVID, not just being a social animal, um,
Party
excuse me,
animal.
party animal, social animal, whatever you want to phrase it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Besides being a young adult, I was also bored as hell and I wanted to be on set. And
Mm,
unfortunately, there was not a lot going on during COVID until like that summer. So I
mm.
hit up every single person I knew in New England, or at least know now. I was like, "Hi, I'm Charlie. Like,
Get me on set.
get me on set. I want to be a PA. I want to be a grip. Like,
So what
whatever
was
you
your
have."
first on-set gig?
My first on-set gig was pre-COVID, but background. It was
Okay.
for a music video with Hop Top Films, Evan Schneider, and he's one of my good friends.
Yep.
And I hit him up on Facebook or something, and he was like, "Yeah, come on." I was like, "All right, cool." And then he has a great truck, he has great equipment. And I was like, "Oh my god, like this is what a film set's like. This is crazy."
This is movie making.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I kept in touch with him. I ended up hitting him up afterwards during COVID, and he brought me on to do some grip work and some PA work. So that's when I really started to
Make
actually make contacts,
Yeah.
build a network. I did do some student films prior to that, with some friends that I'm good friends with now,
Mm.
who they all live in New York right now, but we were all there at one point. We lived in Mass, we lived in Rhode Island, and then we all in New York, and then now we're all over the place now. But
Yeah.
aside from doing student films, like the first professional gigs was with Hop Top. So that's when I was able to really start to build a network on set.
And then during COVID, what was your first on-set thing?
It was a short film. I don't even know if it came out.
Isn't
um,
that the thing with short films? It's like, do all this work. Yeah, you don't know.
it was a 2 week. It's crazy. It was like a 6 or 7 day shoot, spread across 2 weeks.
Oh,
And
cool.
one of those days, I got my wisdom teeth pulled out, and I
Nice.
still showed up to set afterwards.
Oxied up.
Oxyed up. And then the next day, when I was in pain, barely could move, I went to a business meeting to DP someone's TV pilot.
Nice.
So I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this. I was in pain the entire time. Like
Yeah,
I was
yeah, yeah.
literally oxyed up. It was bad. It was as you said.
But then,
Yeah.
all right, so you graduate, you're starting to work. It's this weird time in the pandemic, and you kind of fall into the strikes thereafter. But you've got this drive, you've got this passion for writing, and you want to be a director. So, what was your kind of like directorial debut, so to speak?
Well, if I really want to go as far back as 9, it would be some shitty home movie I made. But
The spy thriller.
yeah, we had
Yeah.
the spy thriller. Yeah, that was called Lie or Die. That link is somewhere online if anyone wants to see a baby
Oh, it
Charlie on
exists?
me. It does exist. Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
it's on. Yeah, I don't know if we're
You
gonna
didn't
promote
send
it
that
here.
in the email.
No, I didn't, because I made that when I was 16, 17.
I would have
so-
been. I would have been actually very interested to see that. So we'll have to circle back.
Okay, well, I guess we do. Maybe with a budget, I'll remake it again.
No.
So
See,
we'll see.
I love Harmony Korine's films. Give it to me raw, uncut, like unfiltered, unvarnished. Varnished rather. I would love
Right.
to see it. So
Yeah,
send it
yeah.
to me when we're done.
Absolutely.
But what would you consider like your first like real effort with like the knowledge, of going to like film school, or like maybe it was even in film school?
My first short that it was not during film school. It was during high school. It was a short called Boys and Girls. And I always wanted to make a coming of age film.
Seems to be a
And
theme, if I may. Like having seen
yeah,
your other work, it seems to be like a storyline or a theme or a genre, or whatever you want to call
I
it,
mean,
that interests you.
who doesn't love a good coming of age film, And it doesn't have to be,
I love
coming
a
of
good
age.
coming of age film.
Doesn't have to be high school, doesn't have to be college. It like, I mean, isn't,
Ah, that's
figuring
interesting
out
that you bring that up, because correct me if I'm wrong. You wrote and directed Graffiti.
Yeah.
We were literally having a debate before you got here. I was like, it's a coming of age film.
Oh yeah.
It is.
No kidding.
No, it is.
Wait, I'm curious now. I'm so curious. What made you think that?
It's a coming of age film insofar as you're gonna have to forgive me. I don't know the principal's name off the top of my head.
Dawn.
Yeah. D-A-W-N or D-O-N?
D-O-N.
Yeah, well. Dawn. The rising sun. Changing seasons.
Yeah.
No, it's a coming of age story because he's an adult man in a professional role who does not act as such. And throughout the course of that movie, he has to kind of grow up.
Yeah.
He's forced to reckon with his own immaturity in a role as in a supervisor role.
Right.
And kind of have you thought of anything?
No, I did not. I just thought,
this is how I interpreted it when I saw it. And especially when I saw it against your other film, please forgive me, the title of it, the Cape Cod one.
The Lost Weekend. Yeah.
The Lost Weekend. I watched The Lost Weekend, and then I watched Graffiti, and I'm like, there's a theme here. There's easily a theme.
No kidding. That's so crazy because I didn't even think about that for Graffiti. I mean, I always I definitely was diving in more on the psychological parts of it where,
the psychological parts are there, but I was looking at it from like a little step removed, and I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, this is clearly a coming of age story.
Yeah, I mean, like it's crazy. Like, so Graffiti was based off of a short story my aunt wrote. And
your aunt wrote the short story?
She wrote the short story. I got permission to adapt it and got the rights to adapt it. And
you had to pay her $100,000.
Yeah, it was
my own aunt.
Well, thanks, Jess. But yeah, I got to readapt it. I wanted to kind of part of me was just not venting with high school, but like more so like, talking shit, the slander, people, dealing with incompetent people who don't know how to do their jobs. And I feel like you deal that in life. But I mean, as a, freshly 18, 19, 20-year-old where, that maybe that high school stuff is definitely, a thing of the past, but like you're thinking of the people who kind of gave you shit for no reason. You kind of wanted to turn some of that into art more or less. And, I feel like Don is definitely aside from his, incompetent behavior and, his own problems that he deals with in the film. I feel like part of those inspirations were just probably adults, teachers that I just, didn't really have the best, butt heads with in school and just kind of not took like actual fact or fiction or whatever from them, but more so like kind of just, are all adults or competent of their position and what they do.
For sure.
And all that jazz. But I definitely was really more I was more honing in on those psychological elements. So it's funny that you bring up coming of age. And now that I think about it, I gotta probably rewatch it again and now deep dive that because if anything, like you probably added a whole different perspective of what I do now. So, or at least the type of stories,
Well, I mean, that's the cool part of filmmaking too, right? Is when it gets to an audience and they don't have any context and they're able to kind of put their own meaning on it.
Right.
So that might not have been anything that you intended with the film, but as I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is cool. Yeah.
Oh my God.
When did you guys film that?
We shot that during COVID. So November 2020, that's when we shot it.
Okay.
And that was like my first like legit production that I wanted to actually give a shot.
Oh, cool.
At doing. I mean, prior to that, I made another coming of age short, Boys and Girls, and that was a high school thesis, and that was on my own. I literally got my brother to be in it, my cousin, I got my friends, my family. Like I
called in all the favors.
I called in all the favors, which you do in any, when you're making any movie, you're always pulling favors. And got it made. Somehow got, I don't know, 85K views on YouTube. Like years later, I was like, what the fuck? Like, someone actually watched this. I was definitely pulling my wonder years, inspo and yearning for youth coming of age shit. It was always a theme I always enjoyed toying with, just because those moments are the moments when you're young, like those are gonna be the moments you're gonna remember that shape up the core of who you are. So I guess carrying that forth with Graffiti, I was like, I made this. I'm like, okay, like I made Boys and Girls Like This, it was, very run and gun. I wasn't like a fan of how I made it. I like the product, but like I also was like I could do better.
Mm.
So with Graffiti, I was like, okay, we're gonna double down here. We're gonna invest some money into a crew. We're gonna invest money into actors. Like we're gonna try to make this happen during COVID. And making a movie during COVID was hard as hell, man, because I was dealing with an actual school district that was kind of open, kind of not.
Mm.
You're dealing with a whole town. We shot that at Durfee High School in Fall River. And I had a connect there who was a part of their Fred TV program.
What is
And
Fred TV?
Fall River Educational Department.
That's catchy. I like that.
And they had a
Fred
whole
TV.
Yeah. I think that's the acronym. But they had a TV station very similar to like your regular cable access station. I mean, I was a member of Bridgewater Television back in the day. That was like kind of where I learned how TV filmmaking worked or TV production in general. And I had to pull a favor and say, hey, we needed the school for 2 days, 3 days, probably. It ended up giving us for 2. The deal was that they would let me have it for free as long as I brought on student interns from the high school.
Yeah,
so I was like, that's a done deal. Like just to get the location for free, like by all means. And by then we had, people who I met that year just PAing and DPing and just anything I could have got my hands on set. The connections I made that year during COVID, I hit them all up. Try to get everyone a day rate as best I could with the money I had. Like, student filmmaking at its best. And we made that puppy work.
Now, keep me on track here. We're still talking about Graffiti, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your budget?
Our budget was it was definitely under 10, but like it was, I would say safely around 5 to 7.
5 to 7?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Part of that was all
self-funded.
All self-funded.
Nice.
Like it was just money I saved up during that summer working. Others just from grants. There were grant scholarships I could have gotten from Hofstra and write up for essays. So I wrote one up for school. Just a lot of money saving.
Hell yeah.
More or less. So it was. I thankfully did not go broke for that movie. I ended up going broke with the next movie, but we
can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, in a minute. But no, Graffiti. I feel like Graffiti was a whole step up. As far as the production,
it's really cool, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I dig the style. I dig the way you filmed it. I mean, it was nice.
I appreciate that. The relationship I had with with that team. It was ambitious. It was. I think it was definitely naive in ways of making a movie then. And even when I was
those are how the best movies are made, though.
Oh, absolutely. Like we had to be creative. I remember there was one scene that we were shooting, and my producer Brendan, I was like, Brendan, we have to get this like scene between Don and Mike. They're talking about who did the graffiti. Like, Mike has a lead and Don has a lead, and they're butting heads
in the hallway.
In the hallway, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to shoot that at one side, like another part of the school. Like the old Durfee High School was huge. And we were like maybe shooting in like maybe like 1/8 of the size of that school. Like we were in like one general area. We couldn't move from one place to the other. Brennan found this whole location on the other side of the school. We had like 2 hours to shoot everything that we needed for the rest of the day. And part of that was inserts and our finale scene. But we had to get this scene in the hallway done. And I was like, no, like we have to kind of just work with what we got here. So that scene ended up being 2 shots. I talked to Matt and Kyle. Matt Stano played Don. Kyle Gregory played Mike. And I was like, guys, like we may not have a lot of coverage. Like these are going to be 2 shots. If anything, like I had to let them play. Like I'm letting you guys go all at it on him. Matt was like, this is his breaking moment. Matt was, doing a huge deep dive on Don, and was like, I feel like this is the point where he really goes batshit crazy. And he really breaks. And the scene following when he goes into the office and he has that temper tantrum and, slams a good old Henny in the little coffee cup. But like it was all building up to the scene prior in the hallway. And I feel like that he really wanted to I let him go all out. I said, do it.
Well, I think it's interesting you bring that scene up in particular because I noted when I was watching, I was like, this is long coverage. But like, I felt like it worked. Like I noticed that there were only 2 shots. And if you hadn't said that, like it was a time factor, I mean, even the fact that it was a time factor, I was like, this is a bold move to like kind of like let this scene play out and let these actors like really kind of explore the space and explore the dynamic. I was like, there's a nice tension here instead of like a bunch of like quick cuts and whatnot. And then
Yeah.
obviously going into the next scene, it gets a little bit more manic and spirals out of control. I thought that was nice that you kind of like let that breathe.
It was, I think the fun part about working on Graffiti was really allowing myself to work with actors that
Mm.
can play with the space and
Yeah, the
embody
who
those characters, you
yeah,
know?
who is the guy that played the principal Don?
Matt Stano.
Matt Stano.
Great. He was a New York actor. Now he's Chicago based, but he was at the time he was living in New York, and I casted him as the lead. I thought he was the Don. Like he was definitely the guy I wanted to go with.
Yeah.
And he was in he had some credits on like FBI's Most Wanted back in the day and a couple other shorts.
As one of the most wanted.
Say it one more time.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I said as one of the most wanted.
Oh, as one of the
No,
I mean,
joke.
yeah.
Anyway.
No, you're good, man. You know, he played a good psychomanic, you know, and I was like,
He did a good job.
He was great, you know. I work with him. I learned a lot about just kind of what goes into directing an actor.
How so?
And,
what do you mean?
you know, he was way more experienced than I was, and you know, work with big directors and small directors, all scopes, and I feel like that me and him talked a lot one on one about Don and kind of really doing a deep dive on like his psychological traits and kind of deep diving on his character more or
Mm.
less for lack of a better word. And I feel like when I was talking to him, because like he's also directs too, so
Oh,
like
cool.
that I think that's what made it easy to work with Matt was he was an actor's director and a director's actor, and he understood kind of what needs to go in teaching actors what to do, and kind of where how the scene should play out from A to B. And it definitely helped with my confidence for sure. To work with actors in the future. So like working with him was just a great experience. And I feel like me and him knew exactly where, Don was supposed to break,
Mm.
where he was supposed to kind of take initiative here and there. And I feel like with his performance, when I allowed him to just breathe, I think that's what I learned. Like you get the best performances when you allow your actors to just give them their interpretation. Like
Yeah.
I've whether it's like the 1, 2, 3 rule, where it's like, the first takes by the page, the second one you get notes, and then the third one, you allow the actor can actually, add a little improv, add a little more interpretation on him on
Mhm.
that. Like we played in that space, like where we made sure we got something on the page, we made notes on it for the second take, and then once we got those notes, or at least got everything at least I wanted to give, um, my actors, a chance to play with that space and like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, do something different for me. Like, what do you think would happen here?
God, did you ever see there's this great video on YouTube. I think I saw it on Instagram. Great behind the scenes of Christopher Walken on the set of Catch Me If You Can.
I don't think I have. No.
Oh man, it's amazing. They show the takes in order, but essentially he does 4 takes of this scene with Leo DiCaprio, where he's like recounting the story about the first time he met his wife or something like that. And literally all 4 takes are different.
No
All 4,
kidding.
like nothing about the takes are the same. The dialogue is the same, but he completely gives different, like 100% different emotions during each of them. Like the first time it's kind of like, bro, jovial, as you would tell your son like a cool story. And then the
Right.
next it's a little bit more, thoughtful. And then like the third one, he's like full blown emotional, like he's recounting her as if she's dead.
Mm.
And I think that is, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've worked with actors, but thinking on your 1, 2, 3 rule that you just mentioned, I think it's also really cool when an actor just comes prepared and like they see their job is all I'm here to do is give you options. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's a gift.
It's all in the communication. I think it's the director actor communication is that relationship in general is so crucial to get your performance on the screen.
Mm.
Because if that relationship doesn't exist,
Oh yeah.
you're gonna not have a good movie.
Oh yeah.
You're not gonna have a good performance in your movie. So I that's like my big thing now Graffiti was that stepping stone because that was
A
the
learning
project.
process.
That was the project that made me say, okay, like this is how it's supposed to be done, or this is I found something
Or
that
this is how it's
worked.
not supposed to
Or
be
not,
done.
not. But I thankfully
Yeah.
I thankfully had an experience where it went smooth. We got the film made. I'm proud of it. I'm happy with how it did. It played at a couple film festivals afterwards. Like I was happy with the results. I thought it was the first movie I actually was proud of.
Yeah, it kind of gave you that fire to keep going. Yeah.
Exactly. I knew it's do or die with Graffiti. It was like it's either I can do this or I don't.
Yeah.
And Graffiti thankfully proved that to me that I can do this. And and just making that step up from my last short at that time, like it was just night and day. Like I was so happy rewatching that cut over and over and over and over again. I was like, I love these performances. I love just building this world and in this school and just turning. And for me, it was personal. Turning one of my relatives' works from page to screen. That was also very rewarding too, and understanding the collaborative process and making differences on
You said it
from
was your
adaptation.
aunt?
The script was an adaptation of my aunt's short story.
Wow.
So
How did she respond to it?
she responded well with it, which I was happy with. She gave me suggestions with certain story notes and just kind of direction with character. Like she really allowed me to be very hands on with it.
Nice.
Which was really nice. And that's you don't really get that opportunity in a more professional setting. Especially when you're adapting. I don't know, like a best-selling novel, and you're dealing with studio execs, and you got to make changes from not only the execs who have authorship of the work, but also staying true to the author's work. So it was. I mean, that was a challenge. It's just, trying to stay as true to my aunt's work as best as I can, but also allow myself to have a little style.
Yeah, of course.
It's hard adapting something from, third person to first person or, from text to screen. But it was a nice little challenge. But like I said, I do think it was the film that made me feel confident I can do this.
So then between Graffiti and I have the worst memory. Lost Weekend?
Yes.
Lost Weekend.
Yeah.
What was the turnaround like that? Like, was it immediate? Were you writing Lost Weekend like in the editing process? Did that gestate for a while? Like, what was the kind of inspiration there?
So Lost Weekend was one of the first scripts I wrote in college.
Oh, cool. So that actually kind of preceded Graffiti.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, nice.
So Lost Weekend was based off of some personal experiences I had my summer before going to college. So that summer in between you just became an adult, you graduated high school, we're on top of the world to, then actually going into the real world, whether that's school again, the workforce, a different kind of career. Like it was that summer before the fall. And I was hanging out with a group of kids on the Cape. And I spent all my summers on the Cape. And I feel like a lot of my firsts, excuse me, a lot of my firsts have happened on the Cape, just like core memories. So like I've not only had this attachment of just going there and summering there every single year, but like a lot of big like moments as a man kind of happen there. And they're not just checklists. They're like I had a relative die. I had a kiss there. Like moments that stick in the back of your brain.
That kind of are defining moments in a young person's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was based off that summer, and I had some buddies of mine where again they went to public school. I was the one Catholic school boy, and they're telling me this of like you're not a man unless if you fuck someone. I'm like, what? So it was just like, oh my god, like like was everything I was working up towards for nothing because I didn't achieve a social checklist that I wanted to I had to hit that society can say, oh, you're a man now in the social realm. And I'm like, and that was like the biggest challenge. It was like, is this going to define who I was going to be? Until 6 months later, college happens. We probably hit all those check marks at that point without giving anything away. And I'm like, did this define who I was at the end of the day? No. And it just stuck. It stuck to me. It really bugged me that winter before going to my spring semester. So I took a screenwriting class that January, February before going back to school. and I just needed to get my thoughts out.
Mm.
Like that summer was lingering at me even before then. Like there just a lot of things happened. Like some, it was definitely a core moment because like that was also like one of the last summers I hung out with that group of kids, like kids I grew up with, my entire high school years. And, it was just like, oh my God, like so much stuff happened that summer. Like what's going, like it was just a lot I had to digest, especially moving from another state.
And
going to
generally,
school.
when you're trying to digest things, you want to put it into something productive, and it found its way into a script. Yeah.
Yeah, it found its way in the Lost Weekend. It was when when I got the first draft done, I was like, oh my God, like this this was everything that weekend encapsulated.
Did it feel honest? It felt, kind of cathartic.
As honest as I could.
Yeah.
But I always want to make a movie on the Cape. I feel like it was so personal.
I mean, God, why wouldn't you?
Oh my God, it's
I gotta be
place
honest,
to
man.
shoot.
The locations, they brought me back. I spent quite a few summers on the Cape growing up, and it's just like I knew exactly. Like, there's a feeling in those back streets. Like there's that one shot when the main character, he's on the skateboard and the main character's on the bike, and it's a wide shot down like
and they're turning down the old
they're turning down the road, and
you
can see all the sand is kind of overlapping with the asphalt, and I'm just like, I know that street. I don't actually know that street, but I know that feeling.
You know the feeling of riding down on your bike at sunset, dinner's awaiting, and
but you're gonna like go into town to grab whatever, and like you're at that age where it's like, I'm kind of an adult, but I'm not really an adult, and I get to go out on my own.
It's very free spirited, man. That's kind of how it is.
No, it captured, especially in that moment, it captured something nice. So you're putting all of this into a script. So when do you said that it was kind of for class. When do you kind of decide like, oh no, I'm gonna make this?
I held on to it because I mean, part of it was COVID. I will say part of it was that, but also like that script was so special. And it meant something to me. Like I don't write personal memories for nothing. Like in a script like that, where I felt like I put a part of myself into Lost Weekend. Like it was too personal for me, where I didn't feel it was the right time to make it when I wrote it. I saved on it. I sat on it.
Yeah, something that personal, I would imagine you kind of have to let gestate and be like, okay, if I am going to tell this, like what, maybe what's at stake, or like, how do I really want it to come across, et cetera, maybe.
Yeah, like I needed some time. I feel like I needed to, be more of an adult before I went and go make it, instead of making it when I wrote it at like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
I sat on it for a few years. That's why I made Graffiti next. I was like, well, okay, I'm going to let this thing sit. Graffiti's was pretty much half written, or it was a much more polished, solid place that spring summer, where I felt more confident to go in production for it and take if anything, take the first hit on Graffiti.
Yeah. You don't want to take your first like major hit on something that's like deeply personal, right?
Yeah, I knew there was something special with Lost Weekend when I wrote it, and I knew it wasn't the right time to make it when I wrote it. I sat on it for a good 2 years.
Cool.
And I lived a little life. I had friends. Was dating someone at the time, and I was just like, kind of just experiencing life as a college kid, until my junior year. When I saved it for my thesis capstone for school. And I knew that I was kind of paying attention of like what other students at Hofstra were doing with their senior films. I didn't realize that was like a big, coming of age moment for, as a college kid, making your capstone film. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to make something, like I'm going to make a personal movie as a capstone film. Either that, or I'm going to make some, genre movie. Okay. Which I almost made a genre movie, or like literally like a something. Oh God, I almost made like a sad Artist Meets Up kind of movie theater movie. And
make everybody feel real depressed.
Yeah, and then the movie theater burns down at the end of the day, and then, and all that jazz. So I was like, I could make that movie and go down that direction. And then my friend's like, "What are you doing? Go make the personal movie. Like, go make Lost Weekend." And I'm like, but I don't know if I can do it. And he was like, "You won't know unless you try." And then I talked to my mentor. I was like, "Hey, remember that script I wrote my freshman year?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I like that script. If you're going to do any kind of movie for your capstone, like you should do that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a few of my close friends and even my roommates, my ex who I was dating at the time, like they were like, do the personal story. Um, and that was enough for me to go into production to do it.
Hell yeah. How long did you film it?
So I guess if we're before going to filming, if we're starting back at that junior year of school, I rewrote the script for a philosophy class of
Okay.
personal identity. So
Okay.
it became this like kind of fact for fact retelling of my lost weekend, starting college to a personal identity story of what it means to be a man. So my philosophy professor specifically chose that topic for me after because I told her I showed her the first draft, she, like retool this whole story into this identity, like into this topic of philosophy. And I really got to kind of read in of like what defines who I am as a person and what characteristics define people. And that was just a really interesting kind of study for myself to kind of go in and really self-reflect of, what defines who I am but also like, amongst men, like, what are certain qualities that define, their manhood, besides, sexuality, whether it's, social class, the type of work they do or, how to treat people. Like a lot of, I kind of had to dive into a lot of topics into that one unit in school. But I feel like that rewrite helped find purpose in the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, if your friends would jump off a bridge, would you?
Yeah, I've heard
bridge jumping. I go bridge jumping in the Cape all the time, and I was like, okay, that's gonna be the rhetorical question. What would you do if your friends go jump off a bridge? Would you go join them or would you go do your own path?
Huh. Interesting.
And
well, he jumps at the end.
He does jump at the end, but not with them. He jumps into his own
on his own for himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On his own path. His friends are going in one direction. He's going in the other.
Yeah. I like that.
I like that. I think once I kind of got all those ideologies and those themes together, after that spring semester, I went head deep that summer. Started casting, started getting into pre-production. But the thing with school is that like it was too personal. I just didn't know if friends of mine or even like my classmates wanted to work on it because I was dealing with toxic masculinity. It's dealing with boys will be boys talk. A lot of locker room slander, and when you go to a liberal arts school, not many people can kind of digest that, if that makes sense. Where it's like people don't want to hear someone's cursing in a locker room or saying offensive stuff, but unfortunately sometimes that boys will be boys locker room banter is so real that like it stays with you. When I played hockey, like I was hearing a bunch of nasty stuff about people and even nasty stuff about me and my friends, just boys being boys, and you can't hide that. You can't hide that all that stuff. Like it's real. The talking shit, the saying, nasty things.
Yeah.
It's what's, I'm not saying it's human, but like it's definitely,
well, it is
something. It's human in its way where you're growing up. You don't know half the shit you're saying, and what that means to people and how people feel. So, with that content in mind, like it was very unfiltered. And, I ended up just working with people who I trusted. My crew in New England here and, close friends of mine. For casting, I casted my best friend.
Which one?
James.
The main guy.
Yeah, Brendan Egan. Yeah,
he was good.
I casted him because I couldn't trust anyone else than James. It was too personal. I felt like I had to go with someone. It felt nice going with someone who I knew in that role. And, he understood. He's known about that script ever since I met him. And that whole idea. So like I felt like he was the perfect fit, and he understands the type of character I'm trying to tell on the screen.
Yeah.
And we had that already established friendship already. And
it felt natural. It felt like there was a trust there. You guys could kind of go to those places together.
Yeah, it was like we could be very vulnerable with one another about that. Like there was a trust, a trust bubble that existed. and it felt right to cast him in that role. And he gave his A game in that. And I'm very grateful that he took the role, because I don't know who else would have played James, at least in the short.
Is there a feature?
Features down the line, it's
proof of concept.
The short's a proof of concept. We have a finished script, and we have a deck ready to go. We're in the funding. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
We're in the funding.
How long is the script?
It right now, off the top of my head, is about 107 pages.
107?
Yeah, but we gotta cut it down now. But
nice. Why do you have to cut it down?
Yeah, just to have it. Different versions of it. But I think the version I'm happy with is at 107.
Well, then it goes back to my question. Why do you have to cut it down? Who's telling you have to cut it down?
I don't know. It's the people that you have to just be prepared for everything.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong there. What else you got in the works? I mean, I know you are producing this other TV show, and I know that there were a few other projects that you produced, Red Code notwithstanding. But what are you looking towards in the future? Aside from the feature length version of Lost Weekend.
Well, besides making a feature for Lost, right now I'm trying to get another project up. I'm trying to write a horror.
Yeah.
Like some psychological.
You haven't done any horror that I've seen.
No, I've not. But horror is something I've wanted to kind of dive in as a creative. I wanted to.
What's your genre? Like the vampire horror, the exorcism horror, slasher movie horror. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna say, I would say psychological horror, like something on the way on the lines of like I Saw the TV Glow meets like a little pop culture, like Five Nights at Freddy's, some like really like some creepypasta stuff. Like I grew up in that early age of YouTube, like going on, I wouldn't say explicit content on YouTube, but like definitely like more horror-esque stuff like Slenderman and Salad Fingers and all that jazz, and
Salad Fingers,
like all like weird creepypasta lore. Like I've always been a fan of like creepypasta horror.
What is creepypasta? Should I know what this is?
It's like Reddit thread, like
Reddit
stories,
thread.
Like a lot of short stories, a lot of like horror novelette like kind of stories.
Okay,
some stuff have been adapted to either movies, TV shows, video games.
That's fun. Okay.
And I've always wanted to do something like that, like just in that realm where it's still diving into horror, but at the same time it's also like its own thing in a psychological like manner. And that's I want to do something like that. I'm trying to see what I can do. I probably would write a short first, just to say, okay, I haven't done a horror short yet. I've toured Lost Weekend, which is a drama, at like big film festivals. I would rather hit up the horror, more genre-esque film festivals next, and explore that audience, explore that market. And I feel like just doing a psychological horror short would be like really nice. So,
oh yeah, that's awesome, man.
That'd be the plan. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, I just finished up producing a TV show with Pat Shea, who's a content creator in hockey, in the hockey world, called Full Ride, and it's more Blue Mountain State meets Workaholics. So that's been very fun, kind of helping him out in the post-production side of things. And
you said an episode drops tonight? Yeah,
an episode drops tonight at 7. I don't even know. I'm not even going to watch.
This episode is not going to premiere for a while, so this will be backdated, of course. But
well, by then all the episodes will be out. So.
Is it like what, first season or
first season? Yeah,
man, that's awesome. How long have you been working on that?
Well, I hopped on in the winter, so I hopped on after
this past winter.
Yeah, this past winter. They shot last summer, so I wasn't a part of production or pre-pro, but I hopped in late into the game, helping them out with post-production consultant and kind of the producing on the back end.
Nice.
Just, getting those episodes, nice and tight with him. It's very funny stuff. I mean, especially coming from a former hockey player, like I played up until high school. He played up until he was, I believe, junior league, like college junior leagues. And it's more kind of an adaptation of like hockey kids that, after they play juniors, they're ended up being 23-year-old freshmen going into like, your average school playing more hocky. So they're playing hockey until they can't get drafted no more. So, but he had some wild stories of, just from hopping from locker room to locker room, and he wanted to, just dump all that in a comedic fashion. And I was like totally for it because I understood the lingo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have not done comedy. I have not done something where I can actually laugh at what I'm working on, or at least be a part of something and be like, oh my God, like you know, I understand that because I lived through it
Sure.
as a athlete. So it was really fun kind of just doing something that was definitely out of my comfort zone and having fun with, you know, a world I'm not really a part of anymore, which is, you know, playing hockey.
But are familiar with.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to kind of just dive into that world. And, you know, we're trying to do it. We're hopefully, you know, it leads to something more, maybe, you know, a second season or something. But like, you know, we're just going along with this ride. I'm happy for Pat. You know, he worked his ass off to get this, you know, series up on the ground. And, you know, I hope he continues doing more with it. And I'm doing anything I can to plug it. So it's
nice. Well, consider it officially plugged.
Yeah. So yeah.
Where's it available?
It's on YouTube right now. We're trying to figure out other platforms as of right now, but like it's kind of its own proof of concept to a, you know, a higher budget series.
How many episodes?
There's 5 episodes.
Wow. How many in the season or is there planned?
He wrote 5. He wrote 5 episodes in that one season.
So tonight is the season finale.
Tonight is episode 4.
Oh, okay. So one more to go.
There's one more to go after this. Oh god, that season finale is so funny.
I would have to check this out. I know you sent it to me, but I watched all the other stuff and I didn't get to it.
Episode 1's great. I remember. Oh god, I remember sending. I sent him a text when episode 1 dropped, and I played it on my TV. And I was like, I actually finally enjoy watching this after the 900th time.
Yeah.
And he says the 901st time, and I'm like, yes. Yeah, we rewatched that thing so many times.
And what's the name of it?
It's called Full Ride.
Full Ride. You said that. That's right. Does it have its own like Instagram page if anybody wanted to find it?
Yeah, I believe it's Full Ride TV. And if I mispronounced it, and it'll probably be somewhere here.
Okay,
but
yeah. We'll get the title across the bottom or something.
I know it's called Full Ride TV Show. And all the episodes are on Pat Shea's YouTube channel. So Pat Shea's posting them on his socials. He's posting them on YouTube as both real content, but they're full length episodes. They're 25, 30 minutes each.
Hell yeah.
So
what about yourself? If anybody wanted to find all of your work or, you know, connect with you in regards to working on future projects together, where would they find you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at _Charlie Norton. Send me a DM. Would love to, you know, connect and work on some stuff. So let's make. Or you can find my portfolio at flyingcardproductions.com.
Flyingcardproductions.com.
Flying Card, CARD.
Card. Okay.
Yeah. So
see, now aren't you glad I clarified that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, you know, I you know, I love, this is the only thing I want to see myself doing, you know, making movies, producing great content, you know, being a storyteller. So that's you know, it's hard being an artist, but you know, we can always have fun making the art.
It's hard out here for a pimp.
Oh yeah.
Well, Charlie, I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. It was very nice talking with you. It was very nice getting to watch your work and learn more about you. Podcast is an open door, man. You can come back anytime. Next time you've got a project, we'll be happy to hear about it.
Thank you for having me. And this was fun. Let's hope we do this again.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Norton, check him out. We'll catch you on the next one. All right, later.